Hey, what's up everyone? Morey Croson here, and today we're going to be going over if running a 4-second 40-yard dash is possible, and we're going to start the video right now. This is the newest edition of the Performance Lab. Reach your individual goals. You don't want to just talk about straight line speed. We also want to talk about your ability to be quick. We break down your video. Let's make you into the quarterback I know you can become. All right, so this is a question that I get asked, and something that I even think about as well is like, is it even possible to run under 4 seconds in the 40-yard dash? And so I thought I'd go ahead and go into the numbers of if it's possible. I still, in my stomach, I want to say it's not possible, just to give you an idea of where my head's at. But I do want to be able to, if it was to be able to happen, if somebody was going to be able to run under 4 seconds in the 40-yard dash, starting from 3-point stance, what would be the scenario, and really how would it be able to actually happen? And if this is the first time you watch one of our videos, we provide speed training. We help people understanding the sprinting mechanics and what's important in order to run faster. And so we're going to use some of the information as we go over how achieving a 40-yard dash in under 4 seconds would even be possible. So we have Henry Ruggs here on the left, and the reason I have this is because he actually ran he's tied for running the fastest 10-yard split, or 0 to 10. He ran it in 1:43. Okay, and I try to make these numbers basically as even as I can. So, really the number is going to end up being right at 4 seconds, right? And so you just have to figure out how can we take off 1/100th of a second, right? Which is just a very, very small amount of time. Pretty, easy to fathom taking off 100th of a second. I can, go into how we could easily do that. But essentially what we would need to do is, and it has to be a combination of, Calvin Johnson here on the right and a Henry Ruggs. Calvin Johnson ran a 10-yard split. I want to say his was like 1:53 or something like that, somewhere in like the low 1:5s. And so, and that's going to be pretty typical for somebody that's 6'5". I do think that in order for somebody to actually do this, they would have to be, probably in that 6'3" range, maybe even 6'4". Just because you'd have to have an extreme amount of length, in my opinion, in order to get to the speed necessary to be able to run sub 40. It can be possible with somebody that is shorter, but it's just going to be very, very unique. I almost think that it's more possible for somebody that is taller and super explosive than I do for somebody that's shorter and just has a, no matter what, in order to do this, you have to be really explosive, but, just having a really, really high top end speed, because there's certain levels of the levers and things like that to just make it very difficult to be able to achieve as high of top speeds, where somebody that's taller, while it is very difficult to also be as explosive or have as quick of a 10-yard split, I think that is something that still can be attainable. So what I did is I said that the person would have to probably run a 1:4, right? The fastest 1:43. I think they'd have to get closer to 1:4, and they'd have to be able to do that in 6 steps. Okay, and I say that because Calvin Johnson got here, and he's over that 10 yards in 6 steps. He's 6'5", right? So maybe somebody that's like 6'3.5", but still has those really long legs. Now, if you're going to be able to do that, essentially what we need to be able to do is average 0.46 per step. Okay, and that means that from or per leg cycle. So from the time somebody hits onto the ground, right, and then gets their foot back off the ground, that would need to all happen within a 0.46 time period, while also achieving a lot of range of motion within the steps. So just to give you an idea how unique that would be, we'll take a look at Calvin Johnson. He lands at 0.03. This is a lot of times what I do with these breakdowns. Okay, he's off the ground at probably about 0.2, let's say. A little bit before that, let's say, we'll just say 0.18. Okay, and then he's back on the ground at 5.6. Okay, so his from beginning to end is what, 0.53. Okay, so from here, 0.03 to here, 0.56, 0.53. Okay, and again, if you were able to make this happen, it would have to be closer to 0.46. Okay, and we'll take a look too at Henry Ruggs to see where he's at. Okay, he lands at 0.33 and is back down at, oh, that's not very good. Let's just say 0.80. 0.33 to 0.80. So that's closer. That's 0.47. Okay, but Henry Ruggs is a lot shorter, right? So you'd have to be able to have that same type of turnover speed, but be the height of, closer to the height of Calvin Johnson. I want to say Henry Ruggs was like 6'1", maybe a little bit over 6 foot, somewhere in there. Yeah, he was 6 feet tall. So, it had to be somebody a little bit taller. And again, Henry Ruggs is able to run it in 1:43. Now, from there, and this is where I just added in like an extra, little second, I would say you'd probably have to get the 10 to 20 in 1 second. A lot of times we see people getting it, it's pretty good if you're able to get it in like the 1-2 area, right? Sub 1-2 is definitely somebody that's going to be able to run sub 4.5. Once you get closer to 1-1, that's like really, really elite. That's really, really good. Getting down into, 1-0 would be very, very skillful. That would take a lot of ability. And again, we'd have to do that in about 4 steps, right? So we see Calvin Johnson here, 6 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and he was able to get to, around 20 yards in 10 steps. Okay, a lot of athletes are going to be closer to 12 steps there. So let's see with Henry Ruggs, he's probably going to be at 12. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Oh, he's 11, right? So he's at 11 steps. So we'd want it to be, probably closer to 10 steps, right? Somewhere in that 10-step range. Now, in order to run, that 10-yard mark in 1 second, you got to be going to 20 miles an hour. So essentially going from 0 to 20 miles an hour, really above 20 miles an hour. It's 20.45, but you'd have to be going above 20 miles per hour in order to really average 20 miles an hour from 10 yards to 20 yards, because that's really what we're looking at is, the average over there. So they got to be running, probably closer to 21, maybe a little bit over 21 miles an hour from 0 to 20 yards. It's very, very, it's hard to get to 20 miles an hour just period, but getting to 20 miles an hour from a dead 3-point start, it is definitely a very, very unique thing, right? So again, this is why I feel like this is something that is really, not even a possible thing. Again, if we were going to make it so we were going to take off a time, maybe make it so that's 0.99 instead of 0.10 from the 10-yard mark. So we're looking at the splits to the 20-yard mark. Okay, so essentially now with that, so we have 1.4 in the first 10, and then we have 0.99 in the second 10. Okay, so now we're going to be at, and there's different ways to obviously achieve this, but that would end up being the most effective way to actually make this a possible thing to achieve. So now we're going to be at 2.39 in terms of the time. And then from there, we would just have to average 1.6. Okay, so, you could obviously do that in 2 different ways. The much more possible thing would be just have, 0.08 in both of those. Right, either way, that's going to be running about 25 miles an hour. So in order to do that, you would have to be running the next 20 yards in 1.6 seconds. All right, and the best way to do that would be, 0.8 in terms of the, each 10-yard split. That's going to be like 25 miles an hour, a little bit above 25 miles an hour. You can also obviously go 0.85, which would be, 24 miles an hour. Okay, and then going down to 0.75 in that last 30 to 40, which would be 27 miles an hour. Usain Bolt, the fastest he ever got to was, I think it was at a 60 to 70 meter within the 100 meter, and he was at, like 28 miles an hour around. And that's the fastest anybody's ever ran. So you'd have to be able to get to that type of speed at an extremely, extremely fast rate. Again, something that is basically impossible to be able to do. It's very, very, we'd have to be able to develop a lot. This would have to be somebody that was just extremely gifted. Maybe if you were able to get, somebody that was really a lot taller and just had just crazy biomechanics and then was able to get to that type of speed super fast, or maybe just be able to achieve just unique levels of speed, right? Get into, like 0.7 within a 10-yard split, right? Which would be 29 miles an hour, getting somebody that's even closer to 30 miles an hour, faster than Usain Bolt. that would be the only way that this ends up being a possibility. So from my information right now, right, my ability to fathom, because, what that takes from a step perspective is, you'd have to, if we look at Calvin Johnson and how fast he's able to cover this distance, right? So he gets to 10 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5-ish steps, right? So it still takes him about, a little bit less than 4 steps to cover 5 yards, right? Which is about the average. You'd need somebody to be able to do that same thing, be able to cover less than 5 yards and 4 steps. And they would have to be doing that in 0.4 seconds, right? So that's going to be covering a lot of distance. This is why I say it has to be somebody that's taller, because, if you're going to be doing that in under 0.4 seconds, then, realistically, you'd have to be able to spend, 0.08 seconds on the ground. It's something, that's amongst the fastest we've seen other than female athletes. So, 0.08 is like what you're saying Bolt was able to do, but his turnover rate was like 0.35, 0.34, 0.35. So he was able to cover a lot of distance and had that ability with the leg cycle. But if you were able, or this person would have to be able to do that in 0.32 seconds. So, and that's, when it comes to speed, that is a big difference, right? I know when we think about hundredths, it ends up being like, it seems very fathomable, right? It seems like it would be easy, but in reality, like 0.03 of a second is a big difference, right? Going from even running, 4.4 here to this, that is not an easy thing. Mid 4.4 to, 4.4 flat is a big difference. There's a lot of changes that need to be happening. That's 0.04 within an entire 40-yard span, right? That's 0.04, let alone each step, right? So that'd be all of those last, 7.5 to 8 steps, somewhere in there, those would all have to be improved by 0.03, right? So to give you a better idea, that would be like if you were 4.4, let's just say it would be 7 steps. So that would be taking off 0.21, which would make this, it would make it so it's like that type of an improvement, right? Taking off 0.21. So the difference would be 4.4 to 4.23. Okay, again, very, very big difference. It's a huge difference, right? You can't just accidentally run 4.23, right? You can't go from running 4.4, 4.44 to then running 4.23 on the next go. If you ran 100% on both of them, right? It's just not something that would typically happen. That much of a change is just not common, right? 4.44 to 4.40, a little bit more understandable. 4.44 to 4.23, a lot more difficult to actually achieve. So, I don't think overall that it's something that could actually happen, but I thought I'd make the video to be able to go a little bit more in detail about everything. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the information, click the thumbs up, subscribe down below. I'd like to know in the comments what you guys think, if you think this is something that is actually possible to be able to achieve. And if you guys want to learn a little bit more about what I do, how I can help you in terms of speed and improving your speed mechanics, improving your 40-yard dash, get more information about some of the things that I went into detail. I know I went over them fast in terms of the turnover speed and how fast you're moving your legs and things like that, the time on the ground. But those are all critical concepts that, I'm assuming most of you guys that are watching this video have already watched me, do some of these breakdowns. So you're already probably following along pretty good. But if it's your first time, you can check out some of the other videos. We have a lot of things that go into detail about running a faster 40, how that's possible, and the most effective ways to do that based off of your position, your height, your size, and some of the areas you may need to improve within the mechanics. So, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.